Good evening, welcome to the 2000, what year is this CIP this year? 26 to 2031 CIP committee, first meeting of the season. We will start with introductions because we have new folks here tonight. We'll start with Joanne.
Joanne Duffy, Planning and Economic Development Director.
Brad Parker, Community Member at Large, again.
Mark Lemay, Selectman Rep.
Tim Redmond, Planning Board Chair.
Jim Raymond, Committee at Large.
Olivia Welch-Erdal, Budget Rep.
Welcome our new members, Olivia and Mark.
Thank you.
Just a bit of a curve here to learn. My mentor has been Jim Raymond for over 20 years, and he taught me the main purpose of CIP is we are not a budget committee. We are not designed at this level to scrutinize numbers and suggest changes. Our mission is to plug all the department requests into the matrix over a 6-year period, or is it 7, Joanne?
6.
A 6-year period. And we try to even out requests from departments so that the tax impact is not steep in one year and remiss the following year.
Not brutal.
The Budget Committee and the Board of Selectmen are the committees that we pass this on to after it's voted on by the Planning Board and accepted. And it is their job to make cuts to the budget and either eliminate or whatever. And it's within our power to move items that departments request if we think that the year is too heavy with requests, and we move them around within the matrix, but we do not zero them out or do anything of that sort. So resist your urges to request cuts at CIP. We don't cut, we just send it along. So, does anybody have any questions before we start?
You might explain, Tim, that we present our report to the full planning board and adopts it. Subcommittee.
There's a program, Capital Improvement Program Committee program handbook in here. It's helpful if you have questions about how things operate here regarding priorities and such. It lays out the schedule and what our goal is to get to by the end of our meetings. I, for one, try to keep meetings as quick as possible. I don't let things drag. When it's time to move on, we move on and get to the next subject. Everything can be revisited at the end. We have our deliberations and recall for any department head or committee that makes requests. If we don't like or we didn't understand their first time through, we have an opportunity to call them back at the end of our program and try to get more answers prior to making any decisions on moving things. So if no one has any questions at this time, I think we can move on to the first.
Can we have this, Joanne explain to us, we've got the new matrix
Yes.
and the last year's.
That was
matrix.
last year's matrix if you wanted to take a look
Okay.
at it.
And
But
there's
we'll be
one,
working off of
the school matrix for this year is also in our packet. So what's on the desk is just the town?
It is not in that handout. It will be provided at a future meeting.
Okay.
Well, it's our next meeting, actually.
The
That's Cody
old
Buzzard.
one has last year's school matrix.
Okay, it's dated 5/13/25, so it's in the notebook.
I
So
think
our
that's
school
just when it was
district-
printed.
Okay.
School district is presenting at our next meeting, so we won't get the matrix. We'll get the matrix at the meeting that night, correct?
Yes.
June 5th.
Unless, we can email it to you if you want it.
If anybody wants it emailed, I don't do that. I'll just wait and get it in hand. But if anybody prefers it to be emailed,
I'm with you.
so
Does
just,
anybody want it
you can
emailed?
contact Joanne if you want it earlier than our
Okay.
meeting. Anything else, Jim?
No, thank you, you're doing great.
Prior to beginning this process, we need to have a vice chair. I asked Jim if he would serve in that capacity if no one objects, and otherwise I would, if anybody else is interested in being vice chair, now's a good time to speak up.
I'll second Jim.
All right, so there's a motion on the floor to have Jim be the vice chair, seconded by Brad. Any discussion on the motion? Jim, do you accept?
I do.
Then all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, motion passes.
For the record, Tim threatened me if I said no, so I have to.
It's unlikely that I'll miss a meeting, but if I do, for work purposes, it goes both ways. You could also miss one for work. All right, so now that we have everything out of the way, I believe we can move on to our first presentation, and that is, tonight's is from admin. We'll offer the floor to our esteemed town administrator.
Thank you.
What page are we on in the matrix, Joanne, for,
We are under administration, let me just get my matrix. And it would be page,
admin is on page 4, it looks like.
Yes. And
Yep.
I recall how the chair prefers to run these meetings, so I'll try and be brief on projects that are in out years.
Please.
But if you could just indulge me, we did make some changes to the matrix setup this year. In past, we had separate columns for 2026 department head proposed, CIP committee approved, planning board committee approved. We felt that it was just easier to just put the 6 years, 2026 through 2031, into separate columns. And then what we'll do is we'll date the actual matrix so we can put in the notes in the memo column if the CIP committee changes a priority or moves something forward or backward, we can make a note there. We felt that that was better than adding another column to the matrix. And then this year, there's 2 columns under 2025. Under column F, there's 2025 Planning Board adopted. That was adopted by the Planning Board, how they adopted the matrix. And then the yellow under column G is 2025 adopted budget. And the reason that I did that is as people have participated on this committee before, this is a planning committee. And a lot of that goes out the window once we get before our governing bodies and the budget committee and they actually have to put together a budget. And last year, when we went to the 2025 budget process, department heads requested $4.9 million in capital projects in our general fund. By the time the budget was adopted, there was only $1.8 million in capital projects remaining, so about a third.
A third were removed or a third were adopted?
Third were adopted. About 2/3 of the capital projects last year got cut during the process. So I wanted to show that. So basically, on the town side, the sewer, because those are user fees, most of those capital projects, all those capital projects survived the budget process.
Explain that to the general public about what the sewer fund is, please.
So the sewer fund is an enterprise fund that is, they do need to go to town meeting to have their appropriation approved, so they do actually have a default budget. But rather than collecting property taxes for the sewer fund, those are collected through user fees for those houses and businesses that are connected to the sewer network.
And those are the funds that support their mission.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
I have a quick question now, but we usually get a presentation by sewer later on, right?
They are scheduled later on.
Thank you.
But just on the town side, our 2025 capital budget had about $1.1 million in road reclamation funds, $200,000 for police cruisers, and then all other vehicles and almost all other projects were cut. We only had $75,000, and those were for small one-time projects in admin, library, and fire, but all of our vehicles were cut during the budget process. So you're going to see a lot of vehicles and maybe some projects that you saw for those that participated last year. You're going to see those again this year from departments. In terms of admin, we do not have any projects slated for 2026. Our first project we have slated is for 2027, and that is an $80,000 for the town hall parking lot repair, repointing of the granite curbing outside, some repair work on the sidewalk. This project has been on CIP on and off for the last 10 years, and we've really delayed it because we want it to coincide with DPW's rebuild of Church Street. The entire drainage infrastructure for First, Second, Third Ave, Autumn Ave, Summer, those come across North Mass, they cross behind St. Matthew's Church, and they actually cross under the building that's next to us, and they go right through the town hall parking lot. So if there's any changes or improvements that need to be made to that drainage for the north side of the village, that's going to impact the town hall parking lot, and that's why we haven't moved forward with that project. And we kind of are monitoring when DPW will get up to Church Street for that.
And what's the answer? When do you expect them?
We will see. They had, I think Adam last year, when he came to CIP, had $1.8 million for reclamation, and he ended up with 1.1. So we've got to kind of dig out of that hole that was created.
Derek, could you explain why the first item in your project we see tonight, the refresh virtualization hardware and the rest of the language, which was a priority 1, was not adopted? Was that not that important to the board?
It was extremely important, the most important project we had on here. However, as we went through the budget process, the select board ended up actually pulling that out and using some funds from 2024 and mostly funds that we had from expiring ARPA funds, the COVID monies.
So the project did get funded?
It got funded, but it wasn't part of the 2025 adopted budget. We ended up doing it through grant funds that we had, which is not done through the budget process, it's done through another process.
All right, I just that's in our matrix, but it's not for the public to hear, so I wanted to get an explanation from that, and I thank you for that. So, nothing in 26. You can move on out to your 27s, like you said, you're talking about the town hall parking lot repairs, and what else do you have in 27, Derek?
So the select board in 2020 formed an ad hoc committee to explore the possibility of constructing a pedestrian bridge across the river where the old covered railroad bridge was. That committee produced a final report in 2021 saying that it was feasible, and the select board then went forward and created another ad hoc committee to explore funding opportunities for that. They have done work since 2022 and are continuing to be an active ad hoc committee and report to the select board. They made a recommendation to the select board at the end of last year to submit a grant application to the New Hampshire DOT for Transportation Alternative Program, their TAP grant funding, which is a federally funded program. It's an 80-20 match, and that grant application was submitted by the town in January of this year to fund 80% of that. And we anticipate in the next month or so that we will hear the results of that grant application. And then the select board, with guidance from that ad hoc committee, will need to determine where the 20% match will come, if they would start a capital campaign for donations or to fund through other grant opportunities, or how they're going to fund that additional 20%.
And how did the number get derived? Did you actually have an engineer give you guys a number?
We looked at, we did not have an engineer come up. We looked at what would be a typical design, and we looked at the Singer Bridge that's over the river that crosses into Manchester by West Side Arena, and used what they have for length compared to what we would need for length. And that number was updated from when it was constructed to today's, to get us an estimate and get us a pretty good number for the grant application.
Thank you. Any questions regarding that?
Okay, now, if I
Members?
remember, I'm sorry.
Please.
The Singer Bridge, which actually one structure that eventually lowered from, I believe, the Manchester side, well, it was still all Manchester, but,
Yeah.
so that's how they did that. Are they looking to use tax dollars at all?
The select board has not taken a vote on
I-
how to fund the
I'm talking
additional
about the ad hoc
20%.
committee.
The ad hoc committee is, reports to the select board and makes recommendations. They are currently exploring other ways to fund that 20%.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from board members, committee members? Wrong meeting. We're committee members, we're not board members tonight.
It's okay, we know what you mean.
All right, what, you gonna move on to 28 then, Derek?
Sure. In 2028, we have the HCC grant, Grassmere Town Hall. This has been a project that the HCC has been working on for a while. Again, this is to construct an ADA elevator to provide ADA access to the second floor of Town
Come up
Hall.
here, Jack. This stuff is right here.
The most likely funding right now, the HTC does have a capital reserve fund that was approved at town meeting, and there were multiple deposits that were put into it by town meeting. There's approximately $425,000 in that fund at this point. The initial estimate is the work to build that addition and construct the elevator and connect it into the rear of the building would cost approximately $1.4 million. So HCC's most likely avenue is through LCHIP grant funding, which is a state funding mechanism. They're a 50-50 grant, and then they would need to come up with approximately $300,000. So I'm working with the HCC on that. They're currently working to update their building preservation plan, which was originally done in 1990. When we applied to LCHIP in 2023, the feedback we received was the preservation plan was too old to be relied upon. So we're working with HCC on that project.
Now, in the past, they've asked CIP for funds through CIP to create the fund that the 425 is in.
Yeah.
Are they asking for that again this year, or are they not asking?
No, they're not asking for that. I think we did 3 consecutive years of $100,000 deposits into the capital reserve fund. And the members of the HCC at that time did not want to ask for more than that. They received, again, three successive years where they did get that funding. And it is set aside for that purpose, so they're trying to explore other avenues without having to come back and ask for additional funds.
Questions from committee members?
I got one. This is the final phase of the reclamation of the town hall.
Yeah, it started in the 1990s. It was a 6-phase plan, and this is phase 6. So the entire upper floor, the second floor theater has been completely restored. All the hand paint and curtains, we've got a grant for that in 2020. The work was done in 2021 to restore all the hand-painted stage curtains. So they have all that, and that's all been done. So the room is beautiful, it's just it's not accessible by everybody in our community.
I'd love to go out there and see it sometime.
Give me a call.
Huh?
Give me a call, we'll get you over there.
And I got one other thing on the narrative here. It says the proposed year is 2026, so it's got to be 2028.
Yeah, it probably should be 2028. I apologize
No,
for that.
that-
I think
no.
it was a cut and paste from last year's worksheet.
There's another 28 request, Derek?
Yes, the other one is a $100,000 appropriation. That would be for the master plan update. The planning board adopted the last master plan update in 2020. It's about 18-month to 2-year process once you actually have your consultant on board. So this was submitted to the CIP committee late last year. It was not in your initial presentation, but we came back to you to present it in July of last year, but we've maintained that in 2028.
Can you tell us how old the current master plan is?
So the update was done, and I believe it was adopted in 2020.
Now, are we required by state law to update it on a schedule, Joanne, of any kind?
They recommend 7 to 10 years,
7 to 10 years. That's recommended, but not required.
correct.
So we'll be looking at only 8 years, so we'll be right in the middle of that window then. From
I would
2020
say if the town appropriated money in 2028, the earliest you would be done, once you put it out to bid, get the contracts. The earliest you get it is early 2029. So you'd be about the 9-year, but we think if the planning board was gonna have multiple public sessions on it, it could go all the way to 2030.
All right. Any questions regarding the master plan update? All right, anybody else, anything else here for us this evening, Derek?
No, I don't have anything else. I know that earlier, before I came up, there was a question about the school's matrix. The draft proposal that the school provided is within, is under their tab. That's the spreadsheet that Scott created. I don't see it necessarily a need to reinvent the wheel.
There's
Because,
just one mistake in there.
okay, so
On the totals.
okay, so there, we'll double check the totals, but that's at least a good idea if you wanted to start looking at that before they present next week.
So Derek, you explained how much cutting was done by the budget committee and the board at the last season. Are these, just from your knowledge, did you review this document? Did everybody just transfer those stuff from last year into this year? Is that how it?
No, you've got some significant changes in Parks and Rec. If you look at some of the Parks and Rec
We don't have to go into them, I
projects.
just wanted a sort of a general statement from you.
Yeah, I would say you're gonna see a lot of the same vehicle requests from the departments. A lot of those got pushed out. I think Adam did shuffle his a little bit. Parks and Rec made some significant changes, and it looks like that the Parks and Rec commissioners, I don't know if Brad's still a member of that, so it looks like they're gonna tap into the Park and Rec revolving fund a little bit more to try and get some items done. But other than that, yeah, a lot of those vehicles are just a year older at this point, and still need to be replaced.
Thank you. Does anybody have anything else for the town administrator before we let him go home for dinner?
Home and enjoy your dinner.
Thank you, Derek, for coming in.
All right.
Well, Jack, you missed it all.
Oh, sorry. It's all right, next meeting you get to shine.
Are you going to have your alternate come to these meetings or not? I noticed there's a school alternate.
Right.
Does she shown any interest in coming?
I didn't talk to her directly. I told her I would be here, of course, but yeah, so I don't know if she's gonna come. I'll talk to her and I'll see her on,
She's welcome to
the
come
next
anyway.
Monday. Yeah, right.
She's certainly
Yeah,
welcome
yeah.
to
No,
come.
right.
And participate, we
Yeah.
won't keep it quiet.
Right, okay.
But it'd be good for her to stay up on
Yeah,
the
yeah.
process, so when you retire,
Yeah, yeah.
you can pass it.
She,
I
yeah.
agree with you, Tim, that you could be an alternate, at least make one meeting and see how the process goes.
Does anybody have any,
How our other committee?
does anybody else have anything for tonight?
No, I just, this is an editorial comment, take it as you want. I was a little disappointed at the deliberative session, the town one, that the CIP wasn't even mentioned. It wasn't even mentioned. I didn't.
CIP?
Yeah, I didn't hear any discussion.
Because I didn't go and blow our horn.
Yeah, well, I know, but then I didn't,
Yeah, I get
I
you.
was still bruised from running the school meeting the night before. So we're invisible, and I think it's important that we, either as a group or through the select board or whatever, describe this process to, not that it would have done any good last year, maybe, but I still think we need to educate the voters on what we do and why it's important, and that just didn't happen.
Well, point taken. See if we can do better next year.
Well, we just to choreograph it a little more, maybe.
Did you have any questions, Jack?
Only that at the school, they talked about administrative changes here about not keeping up items.
With our committee?
Yeah.
What
That
did they say?
That they were told to put in, about the, like, the revolving, the school put in for like $50,000 of replacement, because there is a replacement schedule of, for internet switches and servers and stuff like that. But it was over 50,000 every year, so it seemed like they felt that they were asked not to include those things
By whom?
Not by us.
Okay,
Hey, I mean, we
The only
want,
thing we have is we have our threshold for dollar figures.
for a dollar figure.
But we also have a lifespan clause in our work. Anything that only has to have a minimum lifespan. I think, what is it, 5 years, Joanne, or 3 years? What's the lifespan? Do you
I don't
remember
know
off the top of your head?
off the top right now.
Well, you don't have to tell us.
Yeah, yeah.
You can look
Can
it
look it
up.
up, yeah, okay.
But the point is that we had a substantive discussion with the school board when I did this, still doing this like 15 years ago, and it had to do with computers, because the lifespan of the computers didn't meet the threshold. They were being replaced more rapidly than the threshold. So, I don't know if they disliked that, but that's all.
Which is-
No, it
reason.
wasn't from that. Right now, we have way old computers, so our lifespan.
Anyway,
So
Isn't
it
too
is
short.
5 years.
5 years. So
So
it has to
this
have a
is what it
5-year.
says, capital improvement project as a major, rarely reoccurring expenditure which costs or commits at least $25,000 before factoring external funding or fees, has an expected lifespan of at least 5 years, and falls into one of the following categories.
But you said rarely reoccurring, right?
that doesn't make
Rarely
sense.
That's a phrase that computers being every 5 years is reoccurring,
Yeah,
it's not
but-
rarely.
yeah.
I think it's more like the new
Says
police
ra-
station
It
or,
actually says rarely recurring.
Yeah, I don't think that's, because that
That
would
might be
take
a
out,
typo.
that would take out police cars,
Yeah,
so we ignore that.
well, the
one.
vehicles fall under a different
They're gonna say they're
standard
different.
than
Yeah,
other stuff does.
That's true, yeah.
Capital improvements used to be big things like buildings and new cemeteries and capital expenses. It's grown backwards to become a lot of smaller expenses, which I always fought back against, but I always thought those should be budgetary and not capital. The definition of capital needs to be
Yeah,
cleaned up, I think.
Yeah, I think it's all done, because you're getting beat up about
Well, this is gonna be the shortest night of our
transparency.
6-week period, so does anybody have anything else, although if we can go home?
He's telling us, don't say anything. I move to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn, seconded by Brad. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, abstention, motion passes. Thank you all.
Thank you.
GTV, we are adjourned.
As usual,
Wait,
good
we're
meeting.
still on, don't make any discouraging comments. GTV, we